Ex-top official foresees CCP's demise? Scholar urges rapid RMB sell-off. Surge in younger generations making wills. China sees 24-fold increase over decade. Fugitive officials average embezzlement of 100 million yuan per person. The American version of the three-body problem hits a nerve with codes tied to CCP's top brass. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Ex-top official foresees CCP's demise? Scholar urges rapid RMB sell-off. The Chinese economy is grappling with multiple crises, among which is the sudden plummeting of the RMB last Friday, shocking the financial market. On March 22, the yuan's value took a nosedive, with its exchange rate against the US dollar dropping to 7.2283 onshore, breaching the critical 7.2 level for the first time since last November. The offshore yuan didn't fare any better, smashing past the 7.26 mark, a nadir not seen since last November as well. Xie Tian, an economics professor from the University of South Carolina, shared with NTD that the yuan's downward spiral is due to its lack of solid economic backing and weak export performance to Western countries. He noted that the current psychological barrier is at 7.2, but a more crucial marker might be 7.5 or lower. Earlier reports by China National Radio highlighted that China's economic woes in 2024 would stem from a mix of local debt, deflation, financial risk reduction, and demographic challenges. Notably, general economist Wu Jialong, during an interview, urgently advised to quickly sell off the yuan. Wu sees a troubling pattern of successive crises in China, suggesting it might be too late for solutions, turning the stock and forex markets into veritable minefields. He commented on the peril of the Chinese yuan's depreciation, comparing it to the Russian ruble's drastic loss in value during sanctions and the South Korean currency's 50% drop in 1998, highlighting that without sufficient foreign reserves, the yuan's value is destined to plummet. Wu also pointed out that at a Chinese New Year gathering in February, CCP leader Xi Jinping called for joining in singing the bright prospects of China's economy. This was obviously intended to boost morale, yet the fact that Xi himself was leading the charge highlights the severity of the ongoing crisis of confidence within China. This economic downturn and yuan instability might trigger a political crisis. Commentator Zhou Xiaowei noted that some in the CCP's upper ranks have foreseen the party's demise, citing Li Ruihuan, a former top CCP official, who reflected on the fall of the Soviet and Eastern European communist regimes as a result of economic failure, government dissatisfaction, and lost public confidence, in a report to the Jiangxi Provincial Committee in Government on September 19, 1993. Li once queried the last communist prime minister of Poland about his key takeaways. The Polish leader acknowledged numerous issues but emphasized, too, the failure to properly understand and manage the economy over the long haul and the self-sabotage from needless internal turmoil. Li warned officials in Jiangxi that socialism would eventually be rejected by the people if the economy failed to progress and living conditions did not improve. Zhou Xiaowei suggests that Li's reflections unwittingly foresaw the CCP's demise. The problems that the former Polish prime minister highlighted are now evident in mainland China, indicating that the sinking of China's red ship might be closer than anticipated. Surge in younger generations making wills. China sees 24-fold increase over decade. The ongoing slump in China's economy has seriously ramped up unemployment rates, hitting the younger generations particularly hard. Recently, a notable phenomenon that's catching on across the mainland is the swift rise in younger people starting to draft wills. On March 21, the CCP's Aging Development Foundation unveiled the 2023 edition of the Chinese Will Repository White Paper. The report highlighted that, while only 279 young and middle-aged individuals had their wills stored in 2017, this number rocketed to 7,124 by 2023, marking a 24.5-fold jump in just 7 years. The average age of individuals making wills dropped from 77.43 years, recorded in 2018, to 67.82 years, in 2023. Given the CCP's history of manipulating data, there's widespread skepticism about these official numbers. Still, the official data is no longer optimistic. Between 2017 and 2023, the number of individuals born in the 80s drafting wills increased 21.5 times. For those born in the 90s, the increase was 11.2 times. And in 2023, 167 people born in the 2000s made wills, marking a 24.62% rise from 2020. The economic downturn in recent years has hit China's youth hard, leading to job losses. Online discussions reflect this despair, evolving from terms like lying flat and giving up to the 4 no's youth, and most recently, the 10 no's youth. This latter phrase captures a refusal to donate blood or money, get married, have kids, buy houses, purchase lottery tickets, invest in stocks or funds, assist the elderly, or be emotionally moved. Moreover, there's been a rise in the proportion of individuals who are unmarried or choosing not to marry. Data from 2017 onwards shows a marked increase in the number of such individuals registering wills, totaling 2,077 by the end of 2023. Women represent the majority of this group, accounting for 69.86%. According to the China Statistical Yearbook 2023, the mainland saw 10.5176 million first marriages in 2022, a drop of 1.0604 million or 9.16% from 2021, the first time in years the figure fell below 11 million. The peak was in 2013 with 23.8596 million first marriages, indicating a staggering 55.9% decrease over 9 years. Fugitive officials average embezzlement of 100 million yuan per person. Experts from the News 5 segment on the Epoch Times dove into discussions about corrupt CCP officials fleeing with hundreds of billions of yuan. Commentator Qin Ping said that he came across some interesting data recently. Li Ling, a professor from Peking University, pointed out that if China allocated its healthcare spending like other nations, it could actually afford universal healthcare. Basically, there's enough money, but guess where 80% of it went? It got gobbled up by top CCP officials. Plus, these officials are living it up with perks like exclusive food supplies, free housing, travel expenses for themselves and their entourage, and more. They even get a free pass on certain legal violations without facing consequences and have the institutional ability to rake in money through what's essentially system exploitation, all part of their privilege package. Back in 2010, data from the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, which was open then but likely classified now, revealed that over 30 years, 4,000 officials had bolted abroad, each making off with an average of 100 million yuan, about 13,834 million US dollars. So, beyond their lavish spending, that's the average haul. Fast forward to 2014, just 4 years later, and the official count said over 10,000 officials had fled, doubling the number from 4 years prior, taking with them more than 800 billion yuan, about 110.67 billion US dollars. It might seem like the per-person amount dropped a bit, but truth be told, the officials are probably underreporting. And it's conservative to say a lot of these folks are still in China, but their cash sure isn't. The CCP's cracking down on this cash flight now, but really, they're just trying to stop the small fish and the average Joes. The big-time corrupt folks have too many escape routes, thanks to the very systems they've put in place, not to mention the collusion at home and abroad. China's smack in the middle of an economic crisis now. Often, the downfall of authoritarian regimes looks like it's all about economic meltdown on the surface, but it also ties back to losing the trust of officials and the public, alongside the breakdown of control mechanisms, among other issues. The CCP showing all these warning signs, leading to its leader trying to balance power or walk a tightrope, juggling the elite's interests with those of the public, a tricky act of balancing the needs of the power holders without stirring them to revolt, while also trying to appease the public. That's the game the party leader seems to be playing. But here's the thing, it's doomed to fail. Why? Mr. Qin said that history shows us that police states or authoritarian regimes often collapse under what's called a brittle fracture. Once an economic crisis hits, the so-called cake, the resources available to officials or law enforcement, just keeps getting smaller. Then, these privileged folks have to fend for themselves, looking for their own piece of the pie. What's the move then? Under CCP rule, it translates to fighting over resources with the populace. But when these tensions spike, and the standoff between officials and the public hits a breaking point, a brittle fracture is inevitable, and that's the scariest part.
The American version of the three-body problem hits a nerve with codes tied to CCP's top brass. Lately, the opening scenes of the Netflix series adapted from Chinese sci-fi author Liu Cixin's novel The Three-Body Problem have grabbed the international community's attention. These scenes graphically depict Red Guards berating and assaulting scientists during the Cultural Revolution in China. The writer suggests that the Cultural Revolution remains a shared traumatic memory for the Chinese, including for today's senior CCP officials who were impacted by the period's harmful culture. Yet, their quest for power keeps them from wanting the truth to be known, denying it and thereby risking the recurrence of such an event. The three-body problem opening hits Xi Jinping's sensitive spots. In the series' opening minutes, viewers are confronted with a harrowing scene. Yuan, a female astrophysics student at Tsinghua University in Beijing, watches her father, esteemed physicist Yi Zhitai, get publicly condemned and beaten to death by Red Guards during the Cultural Revolution. Political analyst Tang Hao, reflecting on the series on X platform, said, "The three-body problem starts off with impressive force, depicting the Cultural Revolution's brutality, bloodshed, and the destruction of societal norms orchestrated by the CCP, how the CCP bred a culture of collective terror to dominate its citizens, and ridiculing the CCP's atheism and its animosity towards deities and Buddhas." Even before its release, the Netflix rendition of The Three-Body Problem faced backlash from some online nationalists, with Little Pinks accusing it of tarnishing China's image and doing so deliberately. Rumors circulated that China's propaganda department and the Cyberspace Administration had preemptively issued orders to scrub any Cultural Revolution critique scenes from the American The Three-Body Problem from the internet earlier this month. Film industry insiders have suggested that the show's references to the Cultural Revolution prick at Xi Jinping's sensitivities. Not long after Xi took office in 2013, he asserted that the first 30 years cannot be negated by the next 30, signaling an aversion to disavowing the Cultural Revolution. Now, it appears Xi is steering towards a Cultural Revolution 2.0. Why does Xi, a Cultural Revolution victim, still idolize Mao and the era? The Cultural Revolution, initiated by Mao after the CCP took power, is known as the 10 Years of Chaos. This period saw CCP leader Liu Shaoqi die in detention, his family suffer, and notable figures like Peng Dehuai and Tao Zhu die after years of imprisonment. Xi Jinping's father, Xi Zhongxuan, faced political cleansing as early as 1962, before the Cultural Revolution even began, and was publicly humiliated and beaten during it, resulting in him becoming deaf in one ear. Xi himself faced direct harm during the Cultural Revolution. At just 13, while his father was in re-education, Xi was branded a counter-revolutionary for criticizing the movement and detained at the Central Party School. There, he was publicly denounced, and even his mother was coerced into condemning him. One evening, during a heavy rain, Xi Jinping escaped through a window and made it back home, to the shock of his mom Qi Jin, who asked how he returned. Xi replied, "Mom, I'm hungry." Unbeknownst to Xi, his mother had gone out in the rain to report to the leadership. Starving, Xi cried in despair in front of his sister and brother Yuan Ping, then despairingly fled into the rainy night. Xi spent that night on a bench, only to be taken to a youth detention center for labor re-education the following day. Despite these hardships, as leader, Xi has embraced Maoist ideology upon rising to power. He paid public respects to Mao, nostalgically recalled eating Tianjin buns during the Cultural Revolution, and visited Mao's old school, and lavished praise on Mao. Officially, it appears Xi has not drawn lessons from those tragic years. Praising Marx in a May 4, 2018, speech, he made no mention of the anti-rightist campaign, the Great Famine, or the Cultural Revolution that led to the deaths of millions, opting instead for a euphemism of difficult exploration. Although the post-Cultural Revolution era under Deng Xiaoping took a negative view of that period, by 2021, the CCP had reframed the narrative of the first 30 years leading up to the Cultural Revolution's end as, despite difficulties and setbacks, the achievements were significant. These signs all point to Xi Jinping being a deep-rooted Maoist. The core of it all boils down to the red values of the CCP that Xi was immersed in starting from elementary school. The deep-seated imprint of the party's enforced indoctrination didn't just vanish, even though he himself faced persecution. The code of collusion among the CCP's top leaders. The Cultural Revolution, from 1966 to 1976, deeply influenced the CCP's current leadership. While Xi Jinping's journey during this period is well documented, the experiences of the other 6 standing committee members are less known. Xi, a 1953-born, saw his education interrupted by the Cultural Revolution. He later joined the Down to the Countryside movement and studied at Tsinghua University under the Worker-Peasant-Soldier Initiative. Li Chang, born in 1959, finished his early education in Zhejiang before joining the workforce and later studying agricultural mechanization at Zhejiang Agricultural University's Ningbo branch. In 1957, Zhao Leji was sent to Qinghai for labor work, returning in 1975 to study philosophy at Peking University as one of the last worker-peasant-soldier students. Wang Huning, born in 1955, experienced the revolution firsthand, with his father being persecuted. He was pushed into a foreign language program at Shanghai Normal University after being a worker-peasant-soldier student. Kai Chi, also born in 1955, was sent to work in Fujian's countryside before studying political education at Fujian Normal University. His later policies in Beijing, especially the expulsion of the low-end population, were controversial. Ding Xuexiang, who was born in 1962 and thus less impacted by the Cultural Revolution's ideologies, pursued his studies at the Northeast Heavy Machinery Institute. Li Shi, starting his career in governance in 1975, worked as a cadre in his hometown and then in Liaodong County's Bureau of Culture and Education. Xi's close allies within the Politburo share similar backgrounds of rural labor or being worker-peasant-soldier students, underscoring a collective nostalgia for the Cultural Revolution and admiration for Mao. This shared history and a mutual thirst for power act as a code connecting today's CCP leaders, who now employ Mao's Fengqiao experience in their governance approach, enforcing strict control over the populace. Former Premier Wen Jiabao's warning highlighted the potential for history to repeat without significant political reform, seen by some as a prescient caution against the current leadership's trajectory. The depiction of the Cultural Revolution in the American adaptation of the three-body problem stirs sensitivity because it echoes the intertwined, power-hungry dynamics within the CCP elite. Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.